right, guys, welcome back to the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. My name is Samnang Man. I am the lifestyle and performance coach, hybrid athlete, and philosopher, and the host of the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. And we got a very special guest here today. All my guests are special. His name is Robert Newcomb. Robert and I went to high school together. We played a little bit of football together, and
Yep.
we've stayed connected on Facebook. And um, we didn't really interact too much until recently, actually, and realizing that Robert was into podcasting as well too. He enjoyed the Flow In, Flow Out
Yeah.
podcast, so we've been connecting. And I'm gonna read a little bit of his bio, and I'm gonna have Robert fill in whatever I missed from here. So Robert here. Robert played football with me, and he's always identified himself as an athlete. And he spent most of his athletic careers, his 20s, working at a desk job. So I do want to hear about that story. And I guess that led to some bad times. I guess there was some misalignment there, and he decided to go back into sports in his late 20s, and he spent a large part of his last part of his decade in around fitness and everything. So he's been lucky enough to play on rugby clubs like Potomac Exiles, Belmont Shore, Santa Monica, Tennessee Elite. And he's super blessed to be here, and he's spending time with his family on the East Coast. All right, Robert, welcome to the show. Introduce yourself and tell us your story. Glad to have you on here, okay?
Let's see. Well, like I said, I've done a lot of different stuff in my adulthood. But like I said, early on, I kind of worked at a desk job, and I didn't love it. I didn't love the not being active part of it. I think being active and moving is kind of what it's all about. And just fidgeting and sitting still all day wasn't really it for me.
Yeah.
Waiting on the next cigarette smoke break with your friends, and I forget exactly. You shake your head, and it's like I always shook my head at myself.
Yeah.
You're still doing it. You know what I mean? It's like the next thing to do is like go have a chat with the boys outside. Um,
What job? What job was it, or what type of work was
I,
it?
I was working with I was working with Ben Chazen,
Okay.
at a promotional product supplier and distributor. And it was pretty fun. Like I enjoyed the work. I just didn't enjoy the kind of being tied to a computer and being stuck in the same place. All day. There were parts of it that I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
But that was the thing, is I feel like it's um, I don't know. I was born to get up and move. I'm sure you can identify with that a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
you did mention that we just kind of reconnected recently, and that's partly true. But I also feel like when you when you got big into the like bodybuilding and
Bodybuilding.
CrossFit stuff, well, that's
Yeah.
when we really started chatting. Like here
Yeah.
and there. Once
Back
every
into the
few
fitness.
months. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's kind of I don't know. We've been chatting a little longer than that. We've been watching each other, even if we haven't been on a lot of
Yes.
face-to-face interaction. So I don't know. That's a pretty wonderful thing about the modern world is being able to keep in touch with people and kind of you can have some passive friendships, and then you've still got some understanding of what's been going on in that person's life when you reconnect and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It adds a
absolutely.
little something, even if we haven't figured out how not to stare at our phones too much yet. But
It does. Social media, yeah, social media is a powerful thing, and podcasting. We had our high school friend Brent here, and he described it as a little bit of like a time capsule. So
yeah,
it's neat, and I'm glad to have you on here. And we have been connected, and as athletes, we played football and we done some
yeah,
sports together. And then, yes, I did get back into CrossFit and bodybuilding. It's something that I've always been, but I just been putting more content out as
sure,
well too.
exactly.
So because I knew even like when you were working in like an office, there was kind of something in the back of your head. You're like, I don't know, there's something more than just working in an office.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So yeah, I want to bring you here and kind of like circle back to like how your athletic career started. And what's cool is that your father was a football coach and he was a coach at
Yeah,
like Braddock, correct? Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I'm sure there's some football some audience members from the Lake Braddock community that want to hear about your father and your family as well too. But circle us
So
back from what happened from high school to where you went to college, and then you had that little time in between office, and then you moved to the West Coast. Is that correct?
yeah, I mean, first I was doing personal training in like downtown DC. I did
Okay.
that for a few years, and then I ended up moving to the West Coast.
Okay.
I've been out there for, I think I got out there in like 2016.
Okay.
Uh, Out
Did you play
there,
sports? Did you play sports in college, collegiate sports, or?
I played some rugby in college.
Okay.
I played freshman year. I went to a small school and played football and lacrosse in like a D3 school, and it
Yeah.
was fun. It was kind of like hoping for. Uh, it either needed to be a little more about the fun or a little more about playing at a higher level, if that makes sense. So I kind of tried to walk on at WVU. Probably didn't do any of the things right, like getting to know your film, the coaches, and building a dialogue before you get there. I think that's some of the stuff that I've learned in the past few years, trying to get opportunities to play in some of these big rugby tournaments and stuff like that. Is you got to go get it. It's
Yeah.
you gotta talk to the people. You gotta make your stuff accessible because that's what they want. They want somebody who's about it, who's trying to get it, who's
Yeah.
uh, so you got to do that stuff. And if you don't do that stuff, then you're really not giving yourself the opportunity. Uh, but anyway, so I did not get picked up walking on for football and started playing rugby. My uncle had always played rugby here in Virginia. He played for the Norfolk Blues back in the day. And the stories are he was pretty good at it. So I was like, well, that sounds like a fun thing. And he always said, rugby is like the biggest fraternity in the world. I mean,
Okay.
I guess in modern times, it's a very popular sport with women too. So it's not just
Yeah.
fraternity, but it couldn't be truer. Like after starting to play rugby, you meet so many people from around the world, uh, and it's just a little different than any of the other sports I've ever played in terms of the social aspect to it. Like typically, if you're playing like a 15s match, you're going to go have a meal and a beer with the other team after the match, uh,
Wow. That
which is
sounds
pretty
fun.
neat. Yeah, it's fun. Um, and it just builds the networks. It builds the networks, and then when we play sevens, you play a tournament in a day, and so everybody's kind of camped together. And then when you go to like the national regional tournament, you see all your buddies who you haven't seen in 6 or 8 months. Uh, since it's more popular outside of the U.S. than in the U.S., when you go to rugby around here, you're always going to meet people from different parts of the world. A lot of South Africans, Australians,
Yeah.
Pacific Islanders, all the, England, France. So it's neat to just give people's different perspective on the world. It's real easy to kind of think,
Yeah.
um,
It's like the
that's,
world came to you.
yeah, yeah. And then it's also fun if I've gotten to play outside the country a few times, not too much, but I've gotten to play outside the country a few times, and it's a neat way to travel because you're intimately involved in an activity with somebody when you get there. It's not like if I go to, let's say, Rome to go visit Rome or see tourist parts of Rome, um, I don't necessarily have a common activity with anybody there that lives in Rome.
Yeah.
Whereas, like the last couple of years, I've gone and played a big tournament in Fiji, and then all the people you're there, all the Fijians there, all that are also playing rugby. So you have
Yeah.
like you kind of have an in to the community that you don't necessarily have in normal travel, if that makes sense. And
Yeah. I feel you.
I'm kind of a culture nerd and history and stuff like that. So it's neat to just go meet other people and find out what's cool where they live. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah.
it's really easy to get locked into like the way I think or the way we think or whatever group you want to call it is the only way anybody's ever thought.
Yeah.
Uh, there's people doing it all over the world and nobody does it quite the same. And it's all cool.
That's awesome, man. Thank you for sharing, piece of your world. I don't know much about the rugby world as well, too, but the way you described it as being like a fraternity, I could resonate, I could understand as well, too. And I think, one thing I think what I was like very curious about as you're probably, I mean, pretty sure but you're the same age as me, and
Right?
rugby as being a very like demanding, physically demanding sport, but it seems like it energizes you when you're talking about it and everything. But
Yeah.
the physicality, the training that's required to keep it up to where you at now, are you still playing at a high level, or are you kind of backed up or switching
And
careers?
I'd say I'm still playing at the as high or higher level than I've played before.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, I'd say, I mean, I'm not, there's a whole professional game above kind of what I'm doing. So I'm not playing at the professional level,
Yeah.
but at a lot of, particularly like the sevens tournament, you'll have a lot of professional players there. So you're still marking up against the professional players. Same thing at like the D1 club level. You've still got some guys that are going to be in and out of the professional ranks, or maybe the practicing with the local professional team, or playing with the academy team, or they're kind of in that pipeline. Like I got to play a lot with um, when I guess they have another team now, but there was the Giltini's professional team out in LA a few years ago, and I got to practice with them some and play with all their academy games and stuff like that. So that was pretty neat. But I never, uh, actually suited up and got paid in one of their like regular
Kind of in
season
a
gigs or anything
like
like
right
that.
there between like amateur and like professional. It's the
Yeah.
same with me. I'm not a professional bodybuilder, but I'm like right there, and I love the sport so much. You just continue to do
Exactly.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Is there
Um,
ever have you ever I want to understand how like the physicality that's required to keep yourself injury free, of
okay.
course I'm sure there's like even in football and like rugby, like the high amount of contact that's required in there. Like what type of like how does your training and like your recovery look like now? Is that something
Um,
that you have been working on uh outside of like competing, is like being a personal trainer, right? Or a trainer,
so,
coach?
yeah,
Yep.
so I did a lot of that, and I got a lot of knowledge from doing that. I think one of the big uh, couple things. One of the big things that I've always thought about as a trainer is, the one of the most important things when we talk about weight bearing exercises, like weightlifting exercises, are going to be our big compound movements, right? Like our
Mm-hmm.
squats, our Olympic lifts, things like that. Those are going to be a
Yeah.
big deadlifts, uh, really anything where we're putting weight on our feet and lifting weight. Um, when we get into athletic movements, what work is going to be on the bars of our feet, right?
Yeah.
We're not really thinking about, you're not, if you're sprinting, the Olympic sprinters, their heels are never touching the ground,
Yeah.
right? So,
I learned this actually recently because my brother was coaching me. We were practicing martial arts. He says, "Stays on your toes, stay on your toes."
on your toes.
And lift. Typically, I was just like stay flat footed and everything. But when I started doing that, my running's got so much better.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's um, something I put a lot of thought into over the years. Is just like when we think about these big strength and conditioning programs and stuff like that, almost everything is going to be trained from a flat foot platform.
yeah,
Meaning, I call weight. Typically, the focus is you want weight equally distributed between like the front of your foot, your ball of your foot and toes, and the heel of your toes. Uh, when I think about that anatomically, your heel is really a kickstand. It's so we can stand up and look at the horizon like this, and then get back to moving on the balls of our feet.
okay,
That's the way we move athletically. Uh,
yes, yes,
and then when we get into a competitive environment, when we're like, okay, I want to do maximum expression of force. Well, if I spend my whole time training on a flat-footed platform, that's what I'm going to default to. Does that make sense? If I'm like, well, the last time I went full power on my legs, I went to a flat foot platform, and that's actually like a very dangerous position in sports. If you've got your whole foot down, it can't rotate, it can't twist. Now we're putting extra forces on our knees. We're putting, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I started watching like if you watch like the NFL, I don't like watching people blow out their knees. But if you watch
Yeah.
knee injuries, like you can, it's pretty regularly the step before you'll see his heel plant, whether that's to make a
Okay.
cut or he's thinking about changing directions or something like that. Especially in the non-contact injuries, you'll see somebody's heel plant and then they'll pull up in their knees and stuff, whether
Yeah.
it's for a ligament or whatever. So one of the things that circle back to where we started, one of the things I've tried to implement in my own training over the past, uh, say probably over the past since I turned about 30 was trying to do all of my weightlifting on with the weight driving through the front of my foot, whether that's a deadlift, whether that's a squat. I'm trying to keep my heels off or at least not pushing weight through my heels because I think it's an anatomically weak position or
Yeah.
it makes me vulnerable and it's also going to be training motor patterns that I'm going to use later. So I don't want those motor patterns to be slamming my heel into the ground because I
Yeah.
think that makes me vulnerable. And it's also a misstep. Like if my heel touches the ground, I'm about to get shook. Somebody's about to, break my
Yeah.
ankles or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
it's like you're not as mobile, definitely for sure. And so from what you're studying, you're saying you observe something that right before that their heels will go down and then they'll blow out their knees.
so
Is that kind of like how you observed it? Was that from your own observation or
I think there's a handful of things. One of them would be that watching that you see it in slow motion and you're like, huh,
yeah.
okay, well, that's
Okay.
starting to be a pattern. Another thing, I read this article in like when I was like 30. So what are we going to call that? Like 2014, 2015, something like that. Whenever that
Yeah,
was.
2016.
And it was about um, players in the SEC, college football players that were 4 and 5 star recruits coming out of high school playing in the SEC. So
Mhm.
Southeastern Football Conference. I assume most of these people are going to be familiar with college sports or college sports in America, but if you're not,
Yeah.
uh, nobody's spending more money trying to have the best strength and conditioning than SEC football. You know what I mean? Those programs are spending millions and millions of dollars every year to try and make their football players the best and the strongest and the biggest and the fastest. So what this Sports Illustrated article said, and I have no citation for you, so this is all off memory. I have no idea when this was.
Okay,
You know,
that's how I roll too.
don't, don't,
If you look hard enough, I'll be there. I'll look hard enough, you'll be there.
don't quote me on this, but my understanding of what I read was over the course of their career, entering into college, uh, those athletes tested with like an average of 0.15 to zero point 0.2 seconds faster on their 40 time. Meaning,
Yeah.
as an entering freshman, their 40 time was 2/10 faster than it was as a senior leaving the program.
Yeah.
Uh, that's bonkers. How can we be putting that much time and effort into making our lower body bigger and stronger and more indestructible, and we're making people slower?
Yeah.
Uh,
That
so,
is a good way to think. It's just to always constantly like continue to think and about things and trying to make it better. I think that
yeah,
philosophy that you have, it's good. And then let me summarize a little bit so our audience can remember, kind of like understand a little bit of because there was some technical stuff. Like even for me, like I'm in the industry of like health and fitness as well too, and personal training and stuff. But uh strength and conditioning as like the compound movements, like the squat, the bench, the deadlift, it's a good foundation for everything. And then what you're starting to discover is starting to get into like the nuances of injury prevention and then
yeah,
getting better into like becoming a better athlete. Uh, there was a gentleman that I followed when I actually had 2 ACL tears, no surgery
yeah,
though, but I did a lot of rehab. And there was a gentleman I follow. His name is Knees Over Toes guy. I
yeah,
think I'm sure you follow him. And his
sure.
content is fantastic, and it sounds very similar to like what you're kind of putting together, where it's very like nuanced into that specific area for like athletes specifically, which I think is fantastic that you're kind of like, or for everyone.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think athletics is what made me think of it, but it's
Yeah,
also things that I've had, 65, 70-year-old ladies who I'm working with uh, implement into what they're doing and see them get more mobile. If that,
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
As I
seeing
was
them,
saying, like that, I think a lot of athletes get injured and
yeah,
always want to prevent injury prevention. But not saying that it's
right,
not for everybody. It's like for me, it's like I do strength and conditioning and do personal development work. It's for everyone, right? There's not
yeah,
like we try to not have like it really is for everyone. It's not for anybody specific. But then
right,
there's some target audience members that are like perk up and like, oh, he's talking about knee injuries or how to rehab and everything. Of course, it comes with somebody like playing sports a lot and stuff. But
yeah,
I think what you're studying or learning or putting together, that's where I think the value comes in like in the health and fitness industry. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I think yeah. So now that you're doing, are you kind of implementing it with some of your clients that you're working with now, and then are you kind of bringing this knowledge a little bit more, or trying to push it more towards other trainers, or how what are you doing with it?
I don't know. I kind of like to try and tell anybody that'll listen to me for 5 minutes, because I think
Well, you got a whole podcast.
yes. Well, I think I don't know. I just it's so it's one of those things that I think was a bit of a frustration working in a mainstream gym because you think about something like that and it seems like it makes perfect sense. At the same time, like if I'm a big box gym, if I'm hiring trainers, I kind of want them training the same thing, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? There's an industry standard. These are the cues. This is how we teach somebody to squat.
Yeah,
And if you're telling somebody something radically different, that's not necessarily going to be a good fit at a gym like that. Because once again, I'm saying this stuff, and I think numbers would back it up if we did studies. But at the same time, there's a lot of studies on people doing squats with the full foot platform that we're talking about. And there's pretty much no studies on somebody doing a squat with their heels detached from the ground like I'm talking about, if that makes sense. Meaning like the numbers are on the other side of the argument just because there aren't numbers for
yeah,
this side of the argument. So that's kind of it's an interesting hurdle to overcome. Like
it is.
in something like sports, or I mean, in something like training, what would even be the pathway for that? Would you go to like a kinesiology school and try and do a paper to teach people to teach it differently, or what's your path? What's your path other than something like this, like podcasts or sharing with other people who like to nerd out about fitness and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, I think it's a good opportunity for this podcast to kind of like help you like refine that, because I think there's some good message there to help and the thing is we really we believe like personal development. For me, that's my thing. I believe everybody should do it, right?
yeah,
But then there's going to be those specific people that really like hone in on it. Those people that know how to invest in themselves and
yeah,
really kind of like finding like ideal clientele. And I think when I was just chatting with you, I think you're leaning more towards like other trainers that really understand this mindset of how these patterns work too. So that might be something that what you look towards to is, but like broaden, or like have that message. You have great insight from your personal training and from your experience from athletics and how to be able to describe it. But I think where it gets to is like you're sometimes we try to sell to the people that don't need to be sold. You know what I'm saying? That's for me. Like everybody, not everybody's down. Not everybody's interested in coaching. Not everybody's
yeah.
interested in, they don't understand the value and stuff. But I think working with people that do understand the value and stuff, I think that's where I think very, the most. I think that would be kind of a good game plan, because I think you put on your little intake form here that you have your Instagram that you're paying the bill, right? And let me
Yeah.
I have your Instagram pulled up. I'm gonna tell I want to show Robert or show the audience Robert because he is I saw him on and he's an absolute beast. Look at him. I'm gonna pull up your pictures. You have a lot of great photos on there. You know,
Thank you.
you see that?
Most of my favorite comments are going to go to a guy named Brian Jackson. So at Photo Jacko, if you're interested. He's I've played for a
Yeah,
long time with Belmont Shore, and he's taken a lot of good photos of me over the
yeah.
years. I really appreciate
I
that.
mean, rugby look like it's taking you all over the world, and or like, just have like it's such a fun experience and carrying that
Very fun.
over. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you got this and everything, and tell us a little bit about like your potential plan about like training on your toes. That's what you have on here. You know, one of our
Well,
other
I don't know. It's just something I thought about doing. There's two big content pathways I've thought about doing. The downside being I'm not super into making content, but
guys, thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. My name is Samnang, and I just wanted to take a moment and thank you guys for listening to the Flow In, Flow Out podcast. It's been great to have your support, and I want to tell you a little bit more how you can support the community and how we can support you as well too. So, if you like the Flow In, Flow Out podcast, the message that we're putting out, the information, the content, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel on Spotify. Please like it. Please share it. Please share an inspiring message. It helps with the algorithm. It helps get the message out to people that need it. So that would be greatly appreciated. Now, if you are in need of more personal development support in those areas of physical fitness, nutrition, mindset, spirituality, anything in that type of area, please book a discovery call with us. We'd love to help you. We'll get some time on the schedule to chat about what your struggles are, how we can help you, and we'd love to support you on that way. And if you are interested in being a part of uh, being a guest on the podcast, please let me know. If you have an inspiring story, you have something that you want to share, if you have a message that resonates that's similar to what we're sharing here on the Flow In, Flow Out podcast, we welcome you to be part of our show. We're super excited where the growth and the community is growing. So we look forward to having you here, and we look forward to working with you. And thank you guys so much for the continued support and the love, and we'll continue to keep putting out the good vibrations out there to help elevate the collective vibrations. And thank you guys so much.
uh, one of them is once again the training thing. I think just conceptually, when we're putting together strength training programs, we're putting together training for athletes. We should be emphasizing weight bearing activities on our forefoot to strengthen those motor patterns, reinforce those motor patterns, and make sure that's what you go to when you need it in competition, and you don't let that heel touch, and you don't put your knee in a vulnerable position. Like I said, I could kind of go on about that for days. I probably could bring some diagrams or whatever. But I'd like to make some content on that. That would be kind of fun to do. Um,
Yeah, yeah. It's
Once
fun.
again, I guess you run into the thing, and then the other thing would just be some deadpan donut reviews. I'm a big fan of donuts. I like eating donuts all over the country. I don't necessarily like taking fun pictures or put on a fun outfit and make some cool content. I just want to tell you where the good donuts are from all over the country. I stopped at like a Amish market down in the northern neck of Virginia yesterday, and they had excellent donuts. They were awesome. That's my whole review. That's all I want to say. If you're in the middle of nowhere, Virginia, go get donuts from this little Amish market. It'll be worth your time.
Yeah.
And we're done here, you know?
Tell us a little bit. So you're in Virginia, and tell us, so, since we have some of our football teammates probably listening to the
Right?
podcast, and
Right?
they're familiar with you and Coach Newcomb. Your father, I
Yeah.
didn't play under him directly, but he was a linebacker coach, correct? Like I remember, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I remember him, and I did respect him, and I didn't get coached underneath him directly, but
Yeah.
I remember a lot of. I think how I see like is when other athletes look up to other coaches, and I
Hmm.
remember highly that a lot of athletes, a lot of football players were very like respected your father a lot. Fill us in a little about what he's been doing, and did he coach at Lake Braddock? How many years longer did he coach at Lake Braddock?
Um, and I think the next year, him and one of the other coaches at Lake Braddock got a head coaching job at Marshall High School. JT Biddison, I think
Oh yeah,
he was our
I
outside
remember.
linebackers coach, and so my dad went over and coached with him for a few years, and
Okay.
then my little sister, uh, she's big into softball, so he was coaching her uh, travel team after that, and I think he coached the JV softball team at Lake Braddock a couple years.
Okay.
So. So he did that for a while. Um, I was just helping him move a boat yesterday. That was fun.
Is he retired
But
now?
yeah, he's retired now. He retired a couple years ago. He's down in he got a house down in North Carolina in the middle of nowhere, little river town. It's pretty cool.
Is that where you're at right now? Is that where
Yeah,
you're at right now?
I'm in Norfolk at my little sister's house. My mom and little sister live down in Norfolk right now. My older sister's in Newport News. And then she was a manager with the football program. So a lot of the football guys know her too, Nicole. Um, and there we are. We've still got some family up in Northern Virginia, but I don't think any of them went to Lake Bryant. Some of them went to
Yeah.
Remington. So
That's no, it's fun. For podcasts, I do remember we were chatting a little bit earlier and stuff. What are some of the biggest like influencer podcasting that you are listening right now to kind of keep your mind growing? And I
let's
want to hear
see.
about like some of your favorite podcasts
Some of my favorite podcasts would
besides the
be
Flow In Flow Out
the
podcast.
Flow In, Flow Out podcast. I, I listen to one called Behind the Bastards. That's all right.
Behind the Bastards.
It's a pretty funny one. The old ones, uh, you can you only get to find, how would I say this? His older episodes, which are pretty cool, are going to be your big names in history. You know, your Hitlers, your things like that. Obvious
Oh,
heavy hitters of
so it's
of
a history podcast.
yeah, it's a history podcast. It's a history podcast of bad people, of kind of people that suck.
Like Hitler,
Yeah,
Pol Pot. Yeah,
and
bro.
then as you get to the newer episodes, you'll get more modern relevance, more people who are kind of, they still exist in the modern scene and stuff like that. Just because eventually you run out of Hitlers. Um, uh, so I listen to that one a lot. It's pretty good. I like a podcast called The Ancients. I like a podcast called Philosophize This. That's a really good one. He breaks down a lot of philosophers' works over, let's say, two or three episodes in a row. So he'll take somebody like Slavoj Žižek, who's uh, I can't
I don't
remember his
think I've
last
heard of him.
name. Yeah, so he's got a lot of kind of interesting critique. He's not a big fan of modern capitalism, also not a big fan of modern communist movement. So he's kind of looking for something like a lot of people. It's like the way we're doing things now isn't the only option. We'll figure out some more ways. We just got to keep working at it.
Yeah.
But Slavoj Žižek, he did a big one on him, but he'll take somebody like that and take like three or four, maybe half hour, 40-minute episodes and kind of go through some of their major works or some of the through lines through their major works. It's pretty, I like that one a lot. Let's see, what else are my favorites on the podcasting? Um,
Do you listen to anyone in like the health and fitness industry, like Andrew Huberman, uh, those type of podcasts, or like personal development?
Not that much, even though I would, to me, I think philosophy is kind of in a realm with personal
Yeah.
development, I guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
philosophy is one. That's where, I mean, I'm a philosopher myself,
with-
and thinking independently and kind of developing it. That's the reason why I love podcasting so much. I
right,
like hearing other people's story about their life and what they've gone through and everything, and kind of
so,
like what they're interested in building and how they see the future and what their philosophy is for
yeah,
you, besides like athletics and you growing into your 40s and everything. What is your kind of like philosophy that you developed over your life and to where you're at now and how you want to see, because we're at that age where like, all right, let's start doing something meaningful. I hit that around 30. So around 22, after I graduated college, and before
so,
30, I was more of just enjoying my time,
so,
working a little bit and everything,
right.
but started to develop that inner feeling of like, I need to do something more
Yeah.
impactful than just go to work and everything. So what do you have developed over your life and to where you're at now?
Well, I'd say I had a pretty similar experience. I had the whatever desk job in early 20s. I was doing a lot of training in my upper 30s. Right before I moved to California, I had a good friend pass away.
Mm.
Um, and that really kind of hit me in the thinker, where it's like, hey, man, I can't just be working to get to tomorrow. You know what I mean? Like what's like you said, like there needs some meaning there. Or I need to be doing things that I'm passionate about. If I'm not passionate about, if I'm not into something enough to really want to do it, then I got to find something else to do. You know, there's no,
Yeah.
I don't know,
What was that feeling? Like I knew that feeling. There was something inside me. I was like, I can't
yeah,
I can't be drinking on the weekends anymore. What
right,
is that like that feeling that you kind of get inside? Because I think that's part of the or the podcast is to really understand that psychology where you're like, I don't like this.
yeah,
What it is. It's just an misalignment between
right,
what you want and what you're actually doing and stuff. So I
right,
think you transition into like fitness and staying in fitness and
right.
athletics, which is you're on the path, and part of this is to help us kind of like
Yeah.
discover it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think getting back into athletics is part of it because, like I said, I think that's something, it's just something I've always identified as, um, and I always looked up to my dad as a coach, and I've had, as an adult, I've had people who played football under him come up to me and be like, "Hey, man, I was a few years older than you, but I played for your dad, and he really taught me a lot about the game,
Yeah.
and I really learned a lot about life, like just playing football with your dad. And so that's something I want to work towards is getting into coaching and stuff like that. I've done some coaching, but getting more into that. Um, and uh, I think the cool thing about rugby is the way that culture and community works. Like I was talking about, is if you're somewhat of a leader or a positive person, or people are like, oh man, he's an older dude and he's still getting after it. Uh, you can inspire people. You can get people who are like, man, why am I doing this? And it's like, oh, because I love doing this. It's like,
Yeah.
with like rugby practice or whatever, or practice. Like people are like, oh, practice, do I want to practice? And it's like, yeah, yeah, I do. Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the thing that I want to do. I want to do it better. If I
Yeah.
practice, I do it better. If I like, that's I don't know. If if you have fun doing the thing, then it's fun. You have fun.
Yeah. I think
And
when you have fun doing it, it becomes organic. you know, versus actually like doing something and pretending that it's not really
Well,
fun. I've seen that a
well,
lot, and I could really tell with the inauthenticity and stuff. So it's like very authentic. You're very like happy, inspired to actually really tell this message. I could tell, and it's
yeah,
still
and
something, you know.
like as athletes, like we played football or things like that. Like I don't know, in times gone by, we were supposed to be hunters or warriors. We were supposed to take the money from
Yeah.
the town next
See
door and come back and have a
see.
feast and stuff.
I
So
want to
like
hear this. I want to hear this,
it's
Rob, right here. Go ahead.
it's
I get
just
your flow.
it's better that we don't do that. You know what I mean? It's great that I don't go one town over and with my buddies and go rob 'em blind and then come back and have a feast. You know, but at the same time, like we got a couple 100,000 years of evolution of doing that. You know what I mean? There's still that. Somebody used to say, I've seen, that ancestor still lives inside me. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's how we organized um, society for a long time. And not everybody's like, I want to go play football, I want to go play whatever, or I want to go join the military or things like that. But some of us are,
There's
you know
something.
what I
There's
mean?
something.
So like it's important to scratch that itch if you've got it, so that it
Yeah.
doesn't, like you said, eat at you or um, or
Scratch.
it's just a healthy expression of your own spirit, your own body. And if we don't have that, then it's going to come out in an unhealthy way. It's gonna,
Yeah.
you're going to be frustrated. Yeah, you're not going to be doing what you feel like you're meant for.
Yeah.
So
I think.
that's
Thanks
the
for
beauty
sharing.
of
So
sports to me.
that's your that's your inner desire on the inside, and you expressing it, right? It makes you feel very empowered, and that's why
Yeah.
I like to get to the point where like, hey, look, I want Coach Rob on here, right? Coach Rob is very empowering and inspiring to the folks and everything, really. You were talking about like ancestral like heritage and like where you came
Yeah.
from and everything. Was there like a natural like inclination to go into rugby because of this? Because so I'll tell you a story in some of our audience member. When my
Sure.
brother was teaching me Muay Thai,
I,
so I was picking up kind of, I pick up sports fairly quick, but he was coaching me through it and stuff. And
well,
he said to me, he was like, "Look, you're Cambodian, right? Muay Thai, Kun Khmer, they're very similar in like sports. It's the art of eight limbs." But he said, "You are naturally born to fight, right? That's my brother said that. He was like, I was like, and then when he said that, I was like, it clicked. I am a warrior, right? And so
well,
when you was talking about, when I remember seeing your Facebook pictures, I was like, damn, you look like a Viking. Was that? Do you have some like heritage back in the, or like have you done some research in that? Probably not.
I haven't done too much research in that. But yeah, I mean, I do
That'd
have
be
a lot
something
of.
that like, since
I
you're a
do have
history
like.
buff, you know.
Yeah, I do have my sisters and my mom did some of the ancestry stuff, and so I do have a lot of heritage from that area, from like Northern Europe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, but I mean, that's all over the world. You know what I mean? There's just a segment of people all over the world, whether you're Cambodian, whether you're in Fiji, whether you're, there's, like I said, there's a group of us that were made to fight.
Yeah.
So we're lucky enough that we get to live in this beautiful modern age where we can go have that fight and then we can go shake hands with the dude we
Sure.
just fought with and do it again the next week and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? Typically, everybody gets to go home alive, and that's pretty cool. We don't
Yeah.
have to steal food from the next town over because hopefully we got enough food here. Now,
Yeah.
we could go into politics and economics and talk about are we distributing that properly or whatever, but at the same time, like, uh, we're making enough food. Whether
Yeah.
it's in the right places or not, we're making enough food for everybody, which means we don't have to go to the neighbor next door and steal all their food because we got to eat. Because everybody's got to eat.
Yeah.
And like you
Survival
said, yeah,
survival first, right? So
yes.
in survival and like the hierarchy of needs and everything, the last one is self-actualization and
Sure.
contribution to give back to everything. So that's why it's an important topic to talk about. It's like, what do you want to give back? You know, how do you want to influence? And part of the podcast is to talk about people's philosophy.
Sure.
And I think what your message that you said, I think we're kind of developing it here on the on the podcast. So hopefully it inspires you to continue on spreading that message and continue exploring yourself as well too, because you're a history buff, right?
Yeah, for
from
sure.
from I think the history of yourself is actually very important.
For
And
sure.
most people, I think, because when people see authenticity is because you know yourself, you're grounded in yourself. I think doing the history or studying history and actually intertwining it into your story and everything, I think it's it becomes very powerful when you talk to people about personal development, or even when they're actually like you're trying to influence them or persuade them to working with you or coaching them as well too. So that's neat, man. That's neat. I appreciate you sharing as well too. So what are the future plans before or actually, so we talked about your podcast and everything, and possibly you going into coaching, right? Is that kind of like
Sure.
your training right now? And then you said possibly doing something for yourself. Talk us through to that.
Yeah.
This one of those things that's like, yes, we put it out in the air, but when you put it out in the air, sometimes it typically happens. You know what I'm saying?
I definitely like to get into coaching rugby at either a college or professional level. I think that'd be really fun. Uh, Also, as long as
So
I
you
can
you
play.
never you never coached rugby before?
No, I have. I coached some high
Yeah.
school rugby. I've coached some teams at like individual tournaments, like where we put a team into a tournament, and I was the coach of that. So I have done some, and then obviously, like I said, in training and group fitness
Yeah.
and stuff like that, we've kind of coached in that realm. And then, for anyone who knows Mark Newcomb, knows my pops as a coach, so kind of been around it my whole life. So
Yeah.
feel very comfortable with that. It's just at the moment I'm still being a little selfish and putting that energy into me on the field in some
Yeah.
respects. And that I just want to do it while I can do it. I
Yeah.
had when I was training in DC, there was I had a great coworker named Brian Bowles, and he trained a lot of different people, all sorts of different people. But he's triathlete. He does Ironmans and stuff like that, and he's built a little stocky. He's a little taller than you, a little thicker than you, but he'd do these giant things. It's like, wow, I don't know. That's it. It's impressive. He doesn't have the frame you're expecting for
Yeah.
that sort of event, but he's done. I don't know. The last I talked to him was years back, so he's probably over 30 Ironmans at this point, and like
Yeah.
100 marathons or more, way more than 100 marathons, I guess, actually. Um, but he would tell he had like an older guy named Ed, who was in the mid 80s, and he'd still go for a run every day, whether it was a half mile or a mile or whatever. And uh, he did that, as far as I'm aware, pretty much until he died in his like low 90s. But uh, I would tell him, like, once you stop, you can't do it again. Like you're not going to pick it back up at this age. So
Yeah.
if it hurts a little bit, if you want to do it, you got to keep doing it. You just got to keep doing it. Keep that, um,
Yeah.
because that always come back. You know what I mean? It can come back for a while. If you leave something in your 20s, you can always, you can pick it back up. But if I probably got a couple more years I can play at a reasonably high level, and uh, I'd like to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
I like to
Awesome.
put both of my time into that. So that's pretty fun. I'm really excited about coaching. I love coaching. I think one of the drawbacks to working in a gym for me uh, is was um, limited reach. You can kind of only work with people that can afford it, if that makes sense. Uh,
Yeah.
Doing
There's
personal
certain there's
training
certain
relax.
Yeah, there's certain type of clientels. I can tell you a little bit. When I first started, I did group coaching at
Yeah,
CrossFit and everything. I wasn't a personal trainer, but I did get personal training clients out of it, and just kind of
yeah,
like built it slowly. And it's more of like, I don't think it's not necessary. It's like either or. Like you have to be a an athlete or a coach.
Yeah.
In the process of you being like an athlete, you could coach people for sure, because that actually
Absolutely.
makes you, it makes you like 10 times a better. For me, I find a lot more enjoyment in coaching people. For me, it's like, you know, I see success in the gym. I see success
Yeah.
here and there, and me developing actually makes me more excited that I could actually coach other people and help like make them better. For me, that's very fulfilling and stuff. So finding like,
Super fulfillment. It's the
yeah,
best.
finding the fulfillment in your work, and then finding those challenges right now, you know, like how you just said, there's like this limited reach that, you know,
Right.
and you're in a specific area and everything. That's kind of similar, like to me, it's like I was doing boots on the ground here and there and like coaching there. That's why I took it to this remote coaching space, which I think
Right.
ideally there's a lot of
How do you guys,
benefits.
how do you guys get it? Tell me all about the remote coaching because I've been interested in that. It's something that
Yeah.
sounds really interesting, but I'd be super interested to hear your experience in it.
Yeah, I could tell you a little bit about it. Remote, or I mean, it will be very beneficial for to a lot of the audience members as well, to other trainers and coaches, entrepreneurs. So that's why I do the podcast, is to get some value out on like,
Mhm.
you know, well, originally to create like a brand. So like Rob, you're the brand. I'm Sam Nang, I'm the brand and everything. It really starts a lot with your story and really developing that and who you're talking to, right? So like who you are as a person, like where you came from, like your athletic career, and how like you didn't want to go into the remote or into like the office world. You stayed an athlete, and this is
Yeah.
where you find your passion, and that's where you're inspired as. That's your story as a brand, as a
Right.
business, right? You and I are a business at the end of the
Right.
day, right? We are a person, and then the remote coaching itself, you have the technical skills, I have the technical skills,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't have the technical skills, you just go get the skills. You go get coach,
Right.
you get the
Right.
certification, and then and start coaching. It doesn't have to be paid, it doesn't have to be upfront, but getting the experience and getting the notoriety out there. So
Mhm.
that's how I kind of started. So I was a CrossFit coach,
Right.
bodybuilding coach in person, and
Right.
doing a little bit of nutrition. But I was like, I really want to make it full time and really have like a bigger impact
Yeah.
on people, especially when having this podcast, is that we could coach each other and teach each other like what we're doing. So social media is the most powerful tool there is out
For
there, right?
sure.
For getting content out there, getting value out there. And really at the end of the day, that's the first part of marketing. So part of the podcast is to getting the expert uh the value out there. And then with the technicalities and building the structure and the framework, that's a little bit more technical. It's a little bit more involved, but those skills were built up for me over time,
For
right?
sure.
So it's challenging, but there's ways to kind of streamline it if you wanted to. Just like with anything, is like I've made the mistakes of doing it. I've been doing it for like 8 years now. I started
Okay.
off with YouTube, but that was the content creation part. The
Sure.
content creation part kind of starts first,
Right.
and then like how I asked you earlier, who's your ideal clientele? I think your ideal clientele would probably be other trainers, so that
Okay.
can impact them. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So you
I
might
see
be
what you're
trying to,
saying.
you know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's your ideal avatar that would actually understand you.
Right.
The ideal avatar that would understand me are people that understand how psychology, personal development works
Sure.
into fitness, how it works into the professional life.
Sure.
So I'm talking specifically to that person. We call it an avatar
Okay.
in marketing. It's like you're talking to like an avatar. I originally struggled with this in the beginning, but then my friend coached me through it. He's like, I did it. It's ended up just being like a younger version of yourself. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? Just end up being like a younger version of yourself. You're just, when I jump on a podcast, when I jump on and I post like content and stuff, I'm really just talking about like to a younger version of myself, giving him advice
Okay.
or her, you know what I'm saying? And then it kind
Right.
of just organically grows. Things that I'm passionate about is what personal development, fitness, coaching other
Right.
people and stuff. So when I put this podcast together, it wasn't really like I had to go and I was putting things in the head or I had ideas. I just
Sure.
needed to put it all together. And that's kind of like where you're at. You have ideas, you have coaches, you have a theory, now you're starting to think about business, probably entrepreneurship into the remote coaching space, but you do have to put yourself out there. That's really if you're you create a brand, but like what I think a lot of people struggle with, Robert, is that they're struggling to build an authentic brand because
Okay.
they see other coaches
Right.
and it doesn't look authentic. And I've seen that before
Yeah.
I went into the remote coaching space, before I started putting more content out. But I was like, I want to be different. And I did a lot of the personal development work, the inside work of like, hey, I am a coach. I have the authority. I've read all these
Right.
books and like experience and stuff. And that's
Right.
really is just having the confidence in saying that you got the experience, you got the background, and then all the mechanics of like putting the Instagram page together, the website together. Like you have the
Sure.
Instagram page. Instagram's a very powerful tool. Facebook's a very powerful tool. You just have to use it right.
Yeah.
You just have to continue to research and develop it. And part of digital marketing, business, entrepreneurship is just developing, you know? Like
That's
as you
it.
said, when we first started the podcast and you talk about like how when people start it's not that good. But as you do it, the repetitions over repetition, 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 it gets better.
Right.
And that is kind of like as you starting to think and go about your life and stuff and starting to think more about like the future because I know you put it on the forum is like that is kind of like how you create this vision of what you want, right? You want Coach Rob, you want
Right.
other coaches to trainers to understand how important it is for
We're humans. We gotta lie until it's true. You know what I mean?
yeah, and we and we had to
That's
and we
gotta
had
be
to
me
share
telling.
and we had to share this information
Yes.
too. So there's like six human needs, and I'm sure like you want to stay happy and fulfilled for the rest of your life.
For
It's
sure.
like you need certainty, you need uncertainty, love, connection, and everything, right? Those are the necessary needs, and you have them. Most people have them, but then there's like the last two needs is for growth and contribution. And
Sure.
contribution for me comes in the form of this podcast, come in the
Right.
form of Peak Performance Academy and stuff. So that's for me like from my perspective and I think people resonate with it. I'm at a point in my life where like I think I should do something more
Right.
impactful, you know.
Right. Like
Yeah,
like you said, and it can be like like I like what you said about like target market is like I'm thinking about well I'm targeting an individual, how am I going to make that spread? But like you said, if now you're talking to coaches or other trainers and saying, hey, here's a concept, think about how
yeah,
this applies to what you're doing, uh, you can have a more you can you know
that
spread the
is
message.
yeah, that is kind of almost like the foundation of like marketing and business. And I struggle with this being a business student is like I want to market to everybody. And I was like, how do I market to everybody? But it's like you can't necessarily market to everybody because not everybody's gonna hit subscribe.
No, marketing's a real head spinner. Like
It's a beast.
it's a beast. Well, it's a beast, and it's also uh, it's it's frustrating how susceptible we are to it. Like if you do marketing well, you can sell stuff to a slug, so to speak. You know what I mean? It's not. Uh, so I think it's scary when you get into the nuts and bolts of marketing because you're just like, man, like uh, you see like you look at history and you just see how things went wrong, if so to speak,
It
like
is.
because it's what's a good example?
It's a lot of psychology, actually.
It's a lot of
If
psychology.
if you understand psychology, it becomes easy. I think that's where I I found where the most value was for like athletes and clients is to understand the psychology
Sure.
first. Like if you're do you ever get frustrated with like coaching somebody? You're like, this is completely logical. Why
Right.
don't you do it? Right? You're
Yeah.
like
Right.
that is like us thinking with the logical brain, right?
Sure.
Psychology, you have emotional brains and stuff. So be able to combine both of this and how like, if you're marketing is to me it's like you love rugby and everything. I love entrepreneurship. I love marketing and stuff. Like when I when you're starting to create marketing, you're talking to their emotions, you know?
Right.
And when you could tap into emotions, that's when people start to listen a little bit more. They're like, maybe I should be paying attention to like how I walk, you know? Maybe that's affecting some other areas in my life.
Right.
Maybe that other area is creating some other problems and stuff. And it's not it might sound like deceptive, but it's like that's part of like what psychology is, right?
Sure.
If we're able to pull people's information out that they might not be thinking about, right? For me, it's like I say things all the time that I think people should be thinking about.
Right.
Hopefully, it sparks something. I think you comment on a thing where like it takes 60 to 80 times to hear something
Yeah.
before somebody does
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
Yeah. And that's a tricky thing, like you said, with coaching is like you can you can make a suggestion, and sometimes people will be quick on the uptake, but you also have to be willing to accept that like this might sink in 10 years from now and you'll never see it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but you're just sharing things. I just think about that when you're doing personal training and stuff. I try and tell people, it's like, look, I'm going to tell you this thing, and you're going to think I should be able to just do that easily with my body, and then you can't necessarily do it, or you can't, or you have to you have to just keep working at it till it happens. It doesn't always. Uh, just because you aren't doing it perfect yet doesn't mean improvement isn't happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because you didn't get it right that time doesn't mean you're not closer to getting it right on the next one or whatever.
Yeah.
Getting things right is a process of getting them wrong over and over.
It's
So,
about, it's about reframing things, I think somebody asked me a question is like, how do you deal with like failure? Because, like when we're coaches, we're athletes and we're trying to be like better and stuff. It's like, you don't win every day. You probably lose more than you win.
yeah, or if you do win every day, then you're probably in a small pond. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's uh not everybody wants to just to me what's intriguing about sports and like the as an individual competitor, what the thing that keeps me coming back is like if I walk onto a rugby field or something and I'm like, man, am I going to be good enough today? Like are those dudes over there going to kick my ass? And then it's like they might. And if I'm not walking onto a field with that thought, it's not that interesting. You know what I'm saying? Like if
Right.
I'm walking onto like
Right.
a
You're in that
field,
challenge zone.
yeah. If I'm walking onto a field where I'm comfortable and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna whoop up on everybody, I never play that great because it's not you're not. It's like you said, that challenge zone where it's like,
Yeah.
man, can I do this? Let's find out. Like,
Yeah. It
uh,
really is. And that like when you go to war, when you go to rugby and stuff, when you start that nervousness, I think it's like it's good for
ooh,
growth,
gotta be.
it's great for growth. And I think a lot of people, I think what we try to do with this podcast is to show that athletics do translate to other areas of your life, especially for me is like I translate that a lot to business
Yeah,
because for me like bodybuilding is meticulous. To be a good bodybuilder, you have to do it day in, day out. You have to do it almost 24/7. Your sleep requirements, your nutrition requirements, your mobility and everything. And I've dedicated to that, but I've also eliminated a lot of things that don't really help me do that. And then also in that process has helped me build my business as well too. So that discipline and like mindset of just like working through it and knowing that you're uncomfortable really, really does help you grow in that entrepreneur space. And the entrepreneur space or like going into like your remote coaching or like building your own business, thinking about almost it's a personal journey. It
yeah,
really is a personal journey. Everybody has it. You've had it, right? You're even talking about it here on the podcast that you have some kind of message that you want to get other people to start to recognize. And that is a natural part of growth where we want to grow, we want to contribute. Then Rob, as you get older to like your dad's age, you're like, hey, I actually contributed to
right.
something. instead of actually being like a selfish person and stuff. I think like I mean there's all room to be selfish and stuff, but selfish
Yeah.
in a way where like you will give back to, of course, I mean like personal development, if you, at the core of somebody could look at it like it's a selfish thing. You know, you're taking time to read books, you invest in these courses and take all this money and do all this stuff and do this, but everybody else benefits from it as well too. And I think that that's one thing. uh Hold on,
I
I
think
think
we're
you
still
glitched
good,
out.
Matt. I think my
Oh, okay, you're still good. I
no,
think you said to stop.
yeah, I think
Let's
that
go on for a little bit, and we'll go on for a little bit, and then we'll wrap up the show because we had a really good conversation. But that growth part and that contribution part, I think, is what keeps me motivated, keeps me excited to be like, hey, I'm gonna keep challenging myself no matter what, regardless. Like, I think people think that we're gonna slow down, and I want to inspire people. Like, you're at the age where like you should be, you know, if you have enough energy, motivation, inspire, and like and a vision to do it and stuff, you will do it and stuff. So
right.
that's my inspiring message for today. But how about this? You leave us with an inspiring message before we sign off on the podcast.
Okay, all right. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I think kind of
Or do
you just touched on the age thing, and you know, well, we keep talking as long as you want, but you just touched on the age thing, and I think that's big because I think people have a false sense of what getting old is, meaning like, um, and I do want to qualify
age?
because this is a very, I'm speaking from a position of privilege, meaning I haven't had major health issues. I haven't had those, I, I've, um, uh, I don't want to say like, oh, it's easy for everybody to just be in shape. You know what I mean? Because it's not. People have different challenges than I've had, and I'm very lucky. I've got good genetics. I've got all those sorts of things. But also, like, we got to keep moving, man. I remember people at 30 talking about how old they felt. And like, man, when I was 25 and working at dusk, I felt old. Like,
Yeah.
uh, when I'm joking around about I want to keep playing and being selfish, I don't mean it like I'm really being selfish. I feel like I'm giving back
No,
when
no.
I'm playing because I got,
Yeah.
I'm
I mean,
encouraging younger
you're
people and I'm coaching in other areas. But what I do mean by that is like, I feel like I'm continuing to improve at the game, and I'm going to keep running with that as long as I can. As long as I feel like I'm getting better, I'm going to keep playing. And with a mind towards health. I'm not trying to put myself out there, but
yeah.
I still feel like I'm safe and I'm getting better at the game. And then you pull up your phone and um, you go and look for you're just checking in on your buddies on Instagram or Facebook, and all it is like ads for low T and dick pills and hair loss. And it's like, man,
Yeah.
like, have we tried moving first? You know what I mean? Yeah, you might not be the same person you were when you were 25, but like, I don't know, man, before you start messing with your body chemistry, you might want to try and move a little bit first. You know,
Yeah.
because, uh, because we're not meant to be old at 30. We're not meant to be old at 40. You know what I mean? Like our
Yeah.
bodies, we're meant to be moving. And like I was saying, my buddy said, you got to keep moving it. If you want to move, you got to keep moving it. So
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing is as we get older, we got to keep moving. I've seen it like my mom uh, really kind of got into fitness when she was in her like 50s. And it's like, oh, gosh, she looks so young for her age. You know what I mean? And uh, it's important. You just got to move. You got to find a reason to
Yeah.
move. Whether that's, I think the first thing I always told clients on training is like when we're working in a gym, it's like, yeah, this is fun. This is weightlifting. We're gonna teach you something that's gonna add to it. But at the end of the day, man, you need to go around the block. You need to go for a walk and get your heart rate up. Uh,
Yeah.
on the daily, and that's what's going to keep you living a long time and feeling healthy and feeling good is moving.
Yeah.
Moving, getting your heart rate up a little bit. Um, if you want to be crazy like you and I and do, bodybuilding or contact sports or sports or whatever, you can. But if you
You
want to
can.
live
You don't
a
have
long,
to.
if you want to live a long time and be healthy, you need to go for like a walk every day. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
That's going to take you a long way. That's going to take you a long way to feeling younger. It's going to take you a long way to feeling better. Um, I think uh, people want to talk about diet, and diet's super important. But if you're not moving, your brain is not going to be asking for the right food. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're not running your metabolism, if you're not running the engine, it doesn't matter what fuel you're putting in it. Like
Yeah.
it's all bad fuel if you're not burning it. Uh,
Yeah. I went on, I got over a really good quote yesterday. I think I saw on Instagram. I do want
okay.
to share it. It's that age is not, or I don't know, did I just forget it? You are not your age. You are your energy.
Yes,
And
sure. 100%.
I was like, oh, that hit. I was like, yo, real. You know what I'm saying? It's like your age is determined by your energy and excitement and
Yeah.
what you actually create and stuff. And it was inevitable. We all getting older and stuff. That's why I have this podcast, is to start sharing, like, let's change this paradigm. As you get older and stuff, we should actually be doing more preventative so we could live a more fulfilling life. And fulfilling life has physicality to do with it.
Yeah,
You have more meaningful relationships because you could actually physically go visit somebody. You
for
could
sure.
go give them a hug. After, as you get age and stuff, you start to deteriorate, right? You're not going to go visit your friends as much, right? You're not keeping it up. That plays an effect into, like, people's longevity and stuff. And I think the area of longevity is a very big niche into, like, health and fitness right now, is because people are, like, after, like, the pandemic, and I'm not sure you, like, stress,
Yep.
marriage and COVID, pandemic and everything, political things. A lot of people, especially our age, they're starting to suffer a lot of, like, issues that they don't know how to take care of. For somebody that you and I have worked out, that stress goes away when you go work out.
Yeah.
When you go, it goes away. It goes away after you have a tough workout, a tough practice, right? That stress just stops, like, there. But if you don't have a way to actually stop that stress turns into
Build,
internal, like you were just
build.
saying.
Yeah.
It builds and then it becomes into something else, and that's why we have disease as we get older and everything. And sharing your message, I love it, man. I think the longevity game is extremely important, for anybody, because I health and fitness, personal development, that's like my thing.
Yeah.
And we always talk about it and stuff, but, like, age and longevity and this, like, getting better, as we
Yeah.
age, we should be getting better, right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, one of my buddies posted something. It's probably a quote from somebody else. Like he's probably reposting or whatever. But he's a trainer down in San Diego, Ari Flink, and um, he was posting something that I think a lot of people don't realize till they're older, or or sometimes never realize. But when you talk about consistency, people want to think of it as like giving 100% every time, every time, every time. But like consistency is more about showing up. It's more about like, I'm not always going to feel 100%, but I still need to go get that work in. And if,
Hmm.
if just because you don't PR every time doesn't mean it's not important. You know what I mean? Like if I go
Yeah.
to the gym and I'm like, man, I'm dragging today. I'm going to cut my weight by 40 pounds on every exercise. You still did it, and you were consistent. The consistency is the putting that work in and being responsible and understanding to kind of meet yourself where you're at. You know what I mean? You can't.
Yeah.
You're not always going to feel like Superman. But like if you're consistent, you're gonna get to take advantage of it when you do. When you do feel
Yeah.
like Superman, you're gonna get to go for it. And that,
That's Coach Rob right there.
yeah, and your baseline gets a little closer to that Superman every time, which is pretty
Yeah.
cool. So I don't know. I think that's a big thing. What's it called? Putting that proper frame around the term consistency. It's
Yeah.
not always that you're just going to kill it all day, every moment. But like, you got to do the things. You gotta, you got to do the things. You got to keep doing it and chip away, and you will get better and better and better and better. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man.
Awesome. Awesome insight, man. I appreciate you coming on and inspiring us with your message. It looks like we developed Coach Rob here on the
There we
Flow In
go.
Flow Out podcast.
There we
It's
go.
I want you to keep doing your thing, man. I appreciate you coming on here and being a guest of our podcast and sharing your insight and your journey. It's very inspiring, and keep putting the content out there and be as selfish as possible. I think we sometimes we have to reframe selfish as in like we are being better so we could give back more.
Sure.
The more I'm better and selfish with my time and pay attention to my time, I'm able to give back more. And
Yeah, for
I'm
sure.
at a phase where like I can give back and
Yeah.
my time and my wisdom and my knowledge, and it's very fulfilling at a time. And remote coaching is, it's just like with everything, it's a challenge, right? It's not easy. I don't think anything like I think there's a big misconception of like things are going to be easy. It's not. I didn't go into entrepreneur
Well, it's just that
easy.
things being easy is the goal, man. Forget that. If everything's easy, man, you gotta find some problems. You know,
You got to find
if
some
I'm having
problems.
problems, I need to find some. So I got something to do. Like it's
It's too easy. Life would be too easy. It was too easy.
it would suck.
You
Yeah,
gotta have those
yeah.
little struggles
If
along the way to
everything's
know
too
that you're
easy,
alive.
you need to go start playing golf. It's something you can suck at for the rest of your life. You know?
I played golf a couple times. I remember I played golf when I had a coach. So
Okay.
I think having a coach, yeah, coaches, I think it's a great way uh to help each other. I'm glad I hope I inspire you and coach you a little bit to kind of start thinking a little bit more outside the box and
Sure.
start spreading your message as well too. But
Well, let's get
other than
together
that,
and do this again in a few months.
yeah, absolutely. You just got to have some stuff to report back. You
Oh,
like, I want to see.
you're going to be
I,
homework sending, you know?
I yeah, that's what coaches do.
I like it. I like it. Well, that sounds good.
You go ahead.
I'm trying to get some content up on my fitness ideas and we'll go from there. I'll talk to you soon, Simon.
Yeah. Good. All right. Thank you guys for watching the Flow In Flow Out podcast. We got Rob Newcomb here, Coach Rob. All right, man. I appreciate your time. Okay.
All right, talk to you, man.
Okay.